we go. How can we say things? How can we use our voices for good? Well, you have to love technology. I hit the go live button, started the intro, and the first thing you know, it tells me that there is too much video traffic. So if you got kind of a glitchy beginning, oh well, that's the way we roll sometimes. Thank you for joining us. My name is Nancy Giacalone, and this is Recipe for Success. I have a really fantastic guest today. I am super excited about this. I have been keeping my eye on him for a while, and he's doing some very cool things. So our guest today is Nick Soman. Did I pronounce that correctly?
Perfectly right. Nick
Oh,
Soman, right.
I love it when I do that. Usually I check ahead of time. Nick is the founder and CEO of Decent. I mean, can you think of a better name for a health plan? We live in a world of not very decent plans, so I am super stoked about this. As I was doing my prep work for this podcast, which I always pull as much information about products, people as I can, because I like to get a feel for, the things that maybe aren't as public to everybody else. I came across a gem. Let me tell you, a gem. It's called the Nick Soman User Guide for Working with Me.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure that not everybody has seen this piece, but I'm telling you what, this might be my favorite thing ever, and there's a strong possibility I'm going to co-opt this. We're going to touch on some of these points throughout our chat, but I really want to kick it off by giving you a chance to introduce yourself, tell the audience a little bit about what you do and how you got here.
Sure. I'm Nick Soman, as Nancy said, and thank you for having me, Nancy. I've looked up to you for a while, and it's really nice to be here with you now. I run a company called Decent, and Decent builds level-funded plans around something called direct primary care that we're going to talk a lot more about. And we can often come in at 40% cheaper than fully insured market rates. And if you listen to your doctor or your direct primary care provider, all of your care is available for $0 out of pocket. So that's the pitch, that's the spiel, and that's what we get to do. The why, I think, is important for me, at least. Healthcare is really clearly broken in this country. Decent as a company is not about let's build a big company and make money. It's about let's try to fix some things that feel really broken. And I'm the only one in my family who didn't train as a primary care doctor. And so actually, no matter how this podcast goes, Nancy, I'm already a disappointment. But I come by this sort of interest in primary care pretty honestly. My mom passed, unfortunately, about 18 months ago. She, along with my dad, were my heroes growing up. And I watched them struggle to reconcile having gone to school to take care of people and provide primary care, and then feeling like they were at the beck and call of big insurance companies. And so, you talk about things most people don't know. Most people don't know. Every year, my dad sends me an email once a year that the subject line is how not to become a big insurance asshole. And so
okay, I already love your dad.
Yeah, I love him too. And these are some things that are always echoing in my brain as we try to figure out how we can help people. We also work exclusively with brokers. We don't have a direct sales team. We're never going to have a direct sales team. People don't understand the importance that brokers bring to the table, and you should have an advocate that's looking out for you and finding you the best option, whether that's decent or not. And sometimes it's not. And so it's specifically delightful for me to get to connect with you.
Well, I love that. Some of the bullet points from your dad's email, because I know that I just already know that I would just love him. I think that's really cool. So let's go to, you already brought it up, at one of the primary tenets of Decent is it's founded on direct primary care. Can you explain to people what that means?
Yeah, I absolutely can. Now, I have a lot of friends in the DPC community that can do it better. And if I screw it up, you can yell at me, but you have to call me to yell at me. Please don't yell at me on LinkedIn, direct primary care community. And so the direct primary care community is a community of about 8,000 clinicians at this point that has spread across the country, that is full of doctors who, like my primary care doctor parents, at some point said, I am tired of being at the beck and call of these insurance companies. I got into this business to take care of people, to deliver primary care, whether as a primary care doctor or as a nurse practitioner. And that's what I'm going to do. And they have often hung their own shingles. They charge $50 to $100 a month, typically per member, to provide unlimited primary care. And they don't do any insurance billing. So all of that time that they had previously been devoting toward filling out claims forms and justifying medical expenses can go into taking care of patients. As a result, they can take better care of patients. And the math coming out of this arrangement is really insane. So Milliman just did a big study with the Society of Actuaries showing that when people have unfettered access to primary care, because you don't have to pay a copay or cost share every time you get care, it really shifts the incentives so that the doctor's trying to keep you healthy in a way that really reduces downstream costs like ER visits, et cetera. So we know this is a model that keeps people healthier. What Decent does is it builds the rest of the plan around that doctor. And so that looks like having a high performance network. I was just on the phone with some folks over at Ascension Seton in Austin. So we've got the Ascension Seton network in Austin. We've got Austin Regional Clinic. We've got Dell Children's. We've got a host of direct primary care friends and providers who are taking really good care of you. When you need care outside of their office, you work with them or you work with us. And if you listen, all of your care at those facilities is going to be free to you.
Well, I don't know too many people that would be mad about getting their benefits, their services covered in full without any costs out of their pocket. I think it's something that people are craving, but they don't understand how to get it. Let's hop in the Wayback Machine for just a second on the direct primary care. So when I was growing up, because I'm old, I had
No, go on.
a family physician, which is now what we're calling direct primary care.
Yep.
My family physician knew my name. He knew my parents' name. He knew what was happening in my life. And as a result, he cared for our whole family and our whole person. What happened to that?
The big insurance companies ruined it. I could give you a blow by blow, but very long story, very short. Some bean counters figured out that they could make more money and extract more value from both the patients and the doctors if instead of it working that way, they operate on a fee-for-service chassis where every time you get sick and need help, somebody makes more money at the top of the insurance company. I was just on the phone again with a friend that said a lot of the folks that are out there now running plans will eventually be considered criminal enterprises. This is not hyperbole. This is a timeline and a time bomb that's ticking. And eventually, I think you're starting to see some of this stuff come out now. People are going to realize that this stuff is not being done for the patient. But coming back to the past that you're remembering of that family doc, here's why that's beautiful. It's because nothing is more frightening than having a major health issue and not knowing what to do. And I can say that and talk about it in our marketing all day long, but this really came home to roost for me last year. I've got two sons, Boone and Ben. Boone is 10 and Ben is 7. And last year on January 31st, when Ben was 6, he woke up at 10:30 at night and he couldn't breathe. And I'm 44 and it was the most scared I've ever been in my life. But I did what I've been doing my whole life. And I called my dad and I said, Dad, wake your ass up. Your grandson can't breathe. Tell me what to do. And he talked me through it and it was okay. Ben had something called croup, which is scary, but parents know about it. And once you figure out what's going on, it tends to be all right. It made me appreciate my dad, but it also made me appreciate the value of just having someone I can call, having a doctor I can call that knows what to do. And that's really the value that I think this direct primary care is providing. People will say it feels like having a doctor in my family. And for folks that had family doctors, this is the feeling you want. We don't think it's really new. We think it's taking things back to how they used to be and that they should be.
I agree. A couple comments I wanted to share. So David Mordo said, my family physician made house calls anytime, day or night. And just in case anybody's wondering, so Judy Woodall Turner happens to be my mother. And she says, we loved our doctor. The point is we had access to our doctors. And that's the difference, honestly, from direct primary care, value-based, from what we're trying to get back to and our current model. The one thing I did want to, I'm just going to briefly touch on this, but because I've been around for as long as I have, in the 80s and 90s, there's also a huge problem with medical malpractice premiums. And
Mhm.
a lot of doctors could not afford to carry the malpractice because there were no limits on malpractice settlements. And that was a time it was kind of created a perfect storm, and which caused a lot of private practice to say, okay, I throw up my hands. I'm going to become part of a larger organization and they can worry about that for me. Um, and the reason I bring that up is sometimes we're disparaging towards practitioners, towards medical practitioners. Oh, they don't do this, they don't do that. They got caught in this system as well, this storm that has occurred over all of these years. They all have good hearts. They have good intentions. They didn't put in all the effort that they did to be a bean counter. That was never their intention. But when they become part of these massive systems, they have quotas to meet. They have referrals that have to be given out. They have time limits on how much time they can spend with a patient. So it becomes a very different animal than what was and what we hope to get back to again at some point in the future.
I love how you put that, and I really don't think it's on the doctors. I don't at all. And I've got my own biases. That's entirely true. And I remember growing up and being a little boy on Bainbridge Island outside of Seattle, and my mom who would tell me this is the worst time to become a primary care doctor in the last 50 years because of the rise of big insurance. My dad became the chief medical executive of a big HMO up there after 30 years practicing primary care. So he was in charge of the doctors in the hospitals. I'm probably 12 years old and I'm at the dinner table and he comes home and sits down. He's pretty soft spoken. And he just told my whole family, I don't think my counterparts on the insurance side of the organization, Group Health Cooperative.
I knew that's who you're talking about.
Yeah. He saw that from the inside, and it isn't about the docs. It's about the finance folks that have figured out a way to squeeze a dollar. And, it's incentives all the way down. So you could keep going. But what I like about what we're building at Decent, what I like about working with brokers like you is we are starting to prove that you don't have to pick either higher quality care or less expensive care. There's been this really silly idea that because direct primary care costs money, $50 to $100 a month, and then because a health plan costs money, if you squeeze the two of them together, it has to cost more money, right? Well, no, that's actually not the case because of all the good things that happen for people's health and for their decisions when they've got a doctor they trust that's in the mix. And so, I guess I'm just selling my bag, but boy, are we not seeing it. I've been a member of our own plan since February, and it's working.
Well, I agree, and I love that you guys are doing this. And just fun fact, so Nick grew up not far from where I live, maybe 20, 25 miles from where I'm at. So when he talks about what he experienced and what his parents experienced, his dad experienced, I experienced that as well. I know exactly what he's talking about. And again, if we hop in the Wayback Machine, sometimes we have to look back to look forward. And when HMOs or health maintenance organizations were originally established, the idea was to focus on preventive care and to have low or no cost to the members so that they could be healthier and that the premiums for these programs would be less. That has completely blown up. It doesn't work that way anymore. These health maintenance organizations, can I speak? HMOs, that's the foundation they were built on. That's not how they work anymore. So we look at that and we go, okay, that was a great idea. How do we get back to that? Decent is a perfect example of how we get back to something like that, where we're putting the focus on the relationship with the primary care physician, providing access and providing a low or no cost of entry to the member so that they're getting the care when they need it, where they need it.
I think that's right. And I want to talk about the criticality of brokers, not just for Decent, but in this model. I think there are a lot of people that don't understand the function of the broker. And because we're human beings, we tend to fear or even judge things that we don't understand. And yet, any one of those people, if you were going to say, hey, cool, well, you feel however you want to feel about brokers, congratulations, you've just been anointed to figure out the health plan for your company. They're going to throw their arms up. They're going to go, oh my God, I don't know how to do that. And then they're going to call someone, because we all do this. We all call somebody we think is an expert who may or may not really know much more than they do, but it's a fast way to learn. And I think that brokers that are doing their job right, and that's the majority of brokers are doing their job right and trying to do their job right, are that expert ear for people. When I talk to broker partners for us, I have no interest in working with a broker that says, "Oh, I'm only ever going to pitch decent," because I philosophically object, and I know they're not going to do any real business, because people are looking to people like you, Nancy, to actually say, "Well, let me ask you some questions. Let me understand your situation, and then I can help come up with the best solution for you." And to anybody that would say, "Oh, well, these companies should just sell direct," well, that's like going and buying a plane ticket on United. Why would you ever do that when Kayak's available? When you can find somebody who knows the different options, can help you sort out the best option for you, and ask you some questions about your preferences. That's what it looks like to do business in a transparent, high integrity way. And so we're pretty much all in on working through brokers. And my job is to find the ones that sort of already know direct primary care, because the coolest thing happens when we find them. If I talk to a broker, and there's still a good chunk of them out there, and I say, "Have you heard of DPC?" And they say, "No, I never heard of it." At this point, I just sort of say, "Okay, well, I'm going to call you again in a year." Because if I have to introduce the concept, it's going to take too long. But if somebody says, "Yeah, I know DPC," then I can just say, "Okay, well, we finally built the easy button you've been waiting for a plan built around DPC," and they get it. And that's the coolest thing about this. There's this movement of people, and you and I are part of it. I did a post today with Dave Chase. He's a big part of it with his friends over at the Health Rosetta, Sean Chanson. There are these people that are figuring this stuff out together. At our best, we want to be an arms dealer to that movement. That's the goal.
I love that. Okay, so let's talk about access, because I have and do talk about DPC frequently, but we don't have very many of them in our area. And those that are there aren't taking any new patients because they're maxed out, because people are so happy to be able to have a direct primary care physician. So what do we do in areas like where most of my employers are based, and how do we get them to be able to enjoy the benefits of something like a decent health plan?
Great question. I will give you a short-term answer and a long-term answer. The short-term answer is we have really good, high-quality virtual direct primary care, and that is, it's quite good. I'm going to stand here and tell you the truth, which is that I think if you can go to an office that's near you, I do recommend that every single time. So it's not a second-class citizen. We really, treat it as prominent. We recommend it. I'm comfortable. I've been on it myself, but we do have that option. But I think where I get excited about as a systems thinker is doctors want to do this. The thing you may or may not be hearing from the handful of docs in your community that have a pretty full panel because people are happy, many of them are going, "Man, I might have left, I don't know, the Kaiser system, and I'm really loving that I am able to deliver primary care. I've actually got 2 or 3 friends that used to work over there with me that are calling, and they're telling me, 'Hey, as soon as you can guarantee me some patient volume, I'm going to come over and do what you do, because it looks like you have a really good thing going.'" So part of my job at Decent is to really force the issue by getting employers interested enough that these people feel like they can pull over a doc, and they've told me they need 60 to 90 days to get out of contract. They can train people pretty quickly, and with the appropriate notice, a large percentage of the relatively at capacity DPCs already have people in their back pocket that they're ready to bring on. And so I think short term, it's virtual. Longer term, let's help these practices expand. I think the family doctor used to be at the heart of medicine. We can help it become that way again.
So I want to touch on your comment about virtual, because I do think it's an important conversation to have. 5 years ago, virtual meant teledoc. It did not mean high quality care. It meant somebody was manning the phones. They'd get on the call. You'd open your mouth and they'd go, "Okay, I'm going to prescribe you an antibiotic," and they'd send it to the pharmacy. There was no follow up. It was just, it was a one off. It was almost like worse urgent care. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
but I mean,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
just a fact. It wasn't great.
Somebody picking up in who knows what country, and then the next
Yeah.
time you call, it's a different person, and it was a nightmare.
So virtual care has evolved so rapidly and so dramatically over the last 4 years. Of course, a lot of it is the result of COVID. We can all acknowledge that. But thank you, because it got us to where we are now. And for many situations, it's as good as an in-person visit. Now, if you've got mobility, if there's things that they really need to be able to touch you, examine you, etc., yes, in-person is always going to be a better choice. But you're developing a relationship now with a virtual care doctor. It's like they're in your home. You're sitting at your kitchen table, not feeling well, talking to your doctor in real time. You didn't have to put on some clothes and drag yourself down to the office and sit around with a bunch of other sick people coughing on each other. You're you're in your home, you're talking it through. Many times they're able to send you things to do, especially if it is a direct primary care. You might have a blood pressure cuff at home. You might have different little tools that they can help monitor it. So virtual primary care today is very different than the teledocs of the past. No offense, teledoc, but I just want to make the differentiation.
It is. And I want to touch on something you said that I think is so critical. It's about building a relationship. The tech does help and the tech is evolving, but this is a trust problem, not a tech problem. And so I'll tell you, to really demystify it, here's my favorite way to do virtual primary care. You start with one of our existing primary care partners. I'll take Dr. Ben Aiken in Asheville, North Carolina, a close friend and our head of direct primary care. Fantastically reviewed, well-liked. Patients go in and see him and his team, and they have a killer experience. And then I say, all right, well, I got a guy that lives 3 hours away from you, and he's also in North Carolina, and he doesn't really have, a great DP doc around him. Ben, would you be open to creating a relationship with this person? Virtual is not even included in the sentence, right? I'm just saying, Ben, I want him to be able to call you, because the reality is, after that first visit, unless somebody needs to have blood drawn, et cetera, like you said, quite often it's that access. And I want to text Ben. I want to call him. I want to have a video chat. When I'm real sick, and that happens occasionally, I don't want to get out of my bed. I want to, sit under the covers like a little kid and talk on my phone. And when you start with that relationship, instead of the gee whiz technology, that's really what people want. They want trust and they want access. And I tend to be, a fan of people being able to be proximal enough that they can go in when they need.
Me too.
In-person care, but boy, it's not like it used to be. I think that part has gotten better.
I would agree. Okay, so here's another thing that I wanted to touch on. So we hear often in the news about the lack of medical students focusing on primary care.
Yeah.
I mean, we hear about it all the time. However, you and I happened to be in an event last year, which was a direct primary care conference, and there was a lot of medical students sitting in that room wanting to learn more. So I think it's overhyped how few people are actually interested in it. They may not be specializing in it at the moment, but it doesn't mean that they're not interested in it. So my question to you, and this is a little bit off topic, but that's how I roll. How do we get more? How do we get more people that are going through medical school to be interested in this movement, to be able to provide the care that they always dreamed of when they were a little kid?
It's exactly that. It's that last bit. It's that people feel like they can't do that anymore because they don't know that models like this exist. And I'm not talking about Decent. Decent's going to.
No, right.
I'm talking about direct primary care. The coolest thing happened. I was at the Free Market Medical Association recently, and there was a young woman who was a student at med school, and she'd brought in 50 of her classmates. And the general impression was, wow, the people that are doing this direct primary care seem to have something going. It's working for them financially. Their patients are really happy. I cannot find a direct primary care doctor who left and then went back unless they absolutely, couldn't figure out patient volume, which is part of what we help them do. You could watch these students' eyes getting opened to this model. And I really think, Nancy, it's an education problem. And this is one that I hope Decent can help them solve. Because if my mom had known what her life was going to look like when she was in medical school as a super optimistic dreamer, she probably wouldn't have gone down that road. But models like this exist. And I give so much love to direct primary care, but there's also thousands of people across the country and other specialties that are working on direct care versions of derm, direct care versions of ortho. There are ways to take kind of the insurance bullshit out of this. And I think we need to make sure the students know, because when they know, suddenly, are you going to make as much as the top tier heart surgeon? Probably not. But you knew that coming in. It's the belief that path has been shut out entirely. That I think is scaring students away. And I believe if we create a better call it product as a career for them, then that life will be available again. And we're going to see those numbers pick back right up.
I agree with that. I also think that if they can really understand it and wrap their head around it, they're going to have a better lifestyle as well. They're going to be happier. They're going to be less stressed. They're not going to have pressure on them as far as meeting quotas. And there are many organizations such as yours, such as Hint, such as Direct Care Line. There's a lot of them out there that can help people get to where they need to be. They don't have to have a master's in business on top of it. There are organizations that can help them do that. I've talked to.
I want to jump in on something you said, because I also like to go off topic. This is where you play a critical role, Nancy, and it's not just you. If there are other brokers in the audience, I'm talking to you as well. We've seen one of the most wonderful sort of emergent behaviors in this movement, and that is when a DPC doctor and a really well-intentioned, thoughtful broker find each other in a community. And here's what's happened. And first, I have to make a joke and compare it to that little bird that bites the dirt off of the alligator's teeth, because sometimes I'm like, how are those two hanging out together? Because there sometimes can be a natural sort of innate, oh, well, a broker, they're going to be a business person. They're just going to want to talk to me about business. Or the broker's going to go, this person doesn't understand what employers actually need. They're just going to talk about their primary care. But when it works, and I've seen some really good examples of this, boy, if you're a broker out there and you are starting to lean in this direct primary care community, what you're going to see is that a ton of growth in direct primary care is coming from employers. So these direct primary care docs already have a bunch of employer customers. It makes them really happy when you sort of say, hey, I've got an option for you. And it doesn't have to be Decent. Decent's doing this. There's some other folks out there as well. Some of the health shares are doing this too, that say, hey, I've got an option that sits right around this DPC thing that's working, and it works better from employers. And so for a broker out there to be able to go, instead of, oh, well, let me show you the latest United, reskin, United dingle dongle 24/2 white, Bentley, like, this is a plan built around direct primary care. Your doctor will be Dr. Jonathan Bushman of Reliant DPC in Oklahoma. It's a guy I love. And that just works really well. Imagine being able to say, hey, you want to meet him? Instead of this rep that just got out of college and is coming to sell from you from United and looking up all the answers on his phone in the meeting, when the doctor walks in and says, yeah, it's going to be me. If you don't want to work with me, I can connect you with someone else. It's a different ball game. I don't want to say a fish in a barrel because that's the wrong analogy, but it really feels different. So I've seen that work really well. And I've also seen some DPCs that said, well, maybe I'll just get a broker's license, and they can do that if they want to. But
there's a few of them.
Yeah, but it's I get really excited when I see these folks realizing how they can help each other.
I've had a number of DPC docs on this show. I've had direct specialty docs. I think the more we can engage the practitioner community, the faster we can change this. So I'm always excited. Anytime somebody wants to talk to me on the practitioner side, I'm like, let's go, because I think we just have to continue spreading the word about this. Okay, so let me go back to a couple of my questions, because of course I went right down a rabbit hole.
Oh, I love it. I don't like pitches, Nancy. I like conversations. I think you and I are the same in that way.
Yeah, I only make an outline so that I remember some of the things I want to ask. Okay. I actually have a good one. So if I'm going to get primary care, specialty care, behavioral care, maybe even a hospitalization at zero cost to me.
Yep.
That sounds too good to be true. How do I trust it?
Let me tell you why it's not. So there's a couple things that are going on, and I just want to completely open it up because we get this question a lot. One is that these are underwritten plans. And so for about 85% of groups, we can save you a ton of money versus the fully insured plans. But for about 15% of groups, we're going to have to say, hey, based on the aggregate health history of your whole group, I want to be able to serve everybody. It keeps me up at night. I hate it, but I can't yet. And so we're going to say you're going to be better off in the community rated market or possibly with an ICHRA plan. What's happening in the broader market, as you know, is that anybody that can qualify for an underwritten plan is getting one. I've even heard some brokers describe the individual market or the non-underwritten market as the penalty box, because you might go out there for a year or two and then you see if you can get underwritten again. So that is part of what we do. The other thing that I think is really misunderstood is that there's a tremendous amount of value in getting primary care when you need it. I'm someone that struggled with weight problems since college, just to make this really specific and personal. And if I'm sitting there going, man, I am starting to feel some, numbing in my leg, but I don't want to wait a month and pay $100 to go talk to somebody about it who may not even be any good, I'm just not going to do anything. I'm going to choose the I didn't do anything option, which is the option many of us choose every day without thinking about it. If I already paid my 50 to $100 and I can text my doctor, I know this because I do it. And I text them, or I'll set up a call, or I'll walk down the hill and go to an office. Having that access means that I'm getting things seen before they become really, really expensive. And I'm actually really proud because I've dropped a bunch of weight recently. I can tell you this. I just hit 230 for the first time in like 4 years.
You look good, by the way.
What to do? Thank you. But a lot of that is because I'm having these ongoing conversations with these doctors that understand where I'm coming from, what my issues are. And so that's a big piece of it too, is that I just became a non-diabetic, right? Non-heart attack. From an actuarial perspective, I'm a better risk now than I was before I started getting that care. And then there's this last bit that I think is equally important. I'm thinking about my friend, Dr. Ben Aiken in North Carolina again. Because of that relationship that's built, when Ben tells one of his patients, hey, I think you should go here, they're going to do it unless they've got a good reason not to. And here's why that's important without getting too much into administrivia of health plans. What you think of as a preferred network is just a bunch of different contracts with a bunch of different providers. And the truth is there's a massive price difference, even in something simple like an MRI. And I use MRI as an example because an MRI is an MRI. Like, unless the machine falls down on you, your experience is going to be the same at one place and another. And I won't tell who, but I went and looked at one of our preferred network partners who's great. And I looked in Austin, Texas, and I saw that for the top 10% prices and the bottom 10% prices for just an MRI in Austin, Texas, there was a 7x difference. You could pay 7 times as much in the same city for the same quality of service. So think about that replicated out across all the different care people might need. Now think of a doctor being able to say, hey, not just go somewhere in the preferred network. Like, nobody knows what to do with that. That's like throwing you into Spotify and saying, listen to music. You need a little more guidance than that. And he can say, I recommend you go here. And maybe you say, well, I don't want to go there. Can you find someplace that's a little closer? And he'll say, sure. How about here? And people listen 90% of the time. We've done the math on this. We've seen it. That creates a tremendous amount of cost savings for the plan. And the last little bit, because I don't want to pretend we're a finished product. We're still, growing and learning. Decent takes $20 PEPM. That's our admin fee. And then when there's money left over at the end of the year in what's called a surplus account or a claims account, our standard path is that we'll keep that money. And the reason we do that is because I want to offer the lowest rates I can to people and incentivize us to always be looking at how can we keep people healthy and save them money. I never want to become one of those companies, Nancy, that goes, well, I already got my fat admin fee. Like, what do I care what happens? And so we've really tried to set ourselves up so we get smarter about this over time. We have some wonderful stop loss partners that are with us for the long term in the journey and helping us get good quotes out. And then as a last bit, so I don't forget to mention it, we have the Health Rosetta as a customer, and they've been a fantastic customer for us. They've been running an underwritten plan for a while, and they know they do it really well. And so they said, well, why don't you double your admin fee to 40, and then we'll just keep the money that's left over. And we're happy to do that with groups that are currently on an underwritten plan as well. If I sound like I'm trying to figure this out on the fly, I mean, we are, Nancy. That's the truth. This is something that's good and it's new, and we're well capitalized, so you don't need to worry about it, going away. But I think I want to talk to people like you and to our customers and to prospects and to others to figure out how can we make this as good for you as we know it can ultimately be. And I got to listen more than I talk. I've been talking a lot today.
I actually like it that you're figuring it out on the fly, because that means you're adaptable. That means you're constantly looking at where you are and determining, okay, well, what if we tweak that? What if we twist here? What if we add this? I think that those that come out and say, this is the perfect product, it's going to work brilliantly, are wrong. Sorry, but that's my personal opinion, because we don't know until we try.
Oh, I love how you put that. There's no way. And then the healthcare world is changing quickly, in some ways for the better. How silly would we be if we said, oh, we're not even going to look at innovations in gene therapy. We're not going to look at the first GLP-1 related drug to go on generic. There's all these changes that are happening. Why I was most excited, honestly, very cool to have Health Rosetta working with us as a design partner and then become a customer. They're very well respected, and they should be. But the reason I was most excited to bring on the plan is because when I have people like Dave Chase and Sean Shanson, if I get a message from them saying, hey, this part of the plan could be better, They're going to be right because they know, and they're going to be informed enough to tell me how to make it better and to fix it. And so my job right now is to get as many people who are smarter than me about healthcare, good service as possible, and then make this thing as good as we can.
Absolutely. I mean, isn't our goal always to be the dumbest person in the room so that we can learn from everybody else around us?
Certainly more fun. Yeah, at some point I realized that was a little bit selfish, and I was like, I'm okay with that kind of stuff.
No, I'm okay with it too. All right. So we're going to go back to, I mean, I could talk to you forever. This is such a great topic. It's one of my favorite ones. And anybody who watches this podcast on the regular knows that I'm talking to people that are doing the work all the time. It's very exciting.
Okay. I want to riff on that for a second with you, because this is something that I'm really drawn to in you. You don't present yourself as a finished product. You present yourself as a learning, interested, engaged human being. You don't hide your humanity. You don't bullshit. I love those things. And I think there's this really silly idea that we're supposed to be finished products, or, oh my God, if I admit that I don't know everything yet, then people won't trust me, or people won't know that they can count on me. I've seen that the opposite is true, because we all know that that's a lie. So I can tell you, here's some things we're looking at. Here's some things we're figuring out. I'll also tell you, I want your feedback. My email is nick@decent.com. My phone number is on the bottom of every email. I get calls from our members quite frequently. I'll have that conversation with you. And, maybe we're second place so far, but we're going to try harder until we, got something better for people. But I appreciate it about you, and really anyone who you've done enough really impressive things professionally. You could just coast, Nancy. You absolutely could. And you and I both know that. And the fact that you don't, I get excited for you, because you're at the peak of your powers and you can do cool things. And I also think it's really, it's a good model for the other people in the world. I got 2 little kids I'm thinking about all the time, and being impressed with themselves is not a trait I want to cultivate.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Now you made me blush, but okay, I'm going to get back to you. Okay. Makes me much more comfortable. Okay. The Nick Soman.
Okay.
The Nick Soman user guide. I just can't love this enough. I cannot love this enough. I have to quote this bullet point, because if you have not seen it, and I know a lot of you have not dug deep enough to find this, it's under communications. He has a subtitle. He has this broken out into sections.
So you can find this at nicksoman.com. I found it to be useful enough that I just put it. It's my website, nicksoman.com.
Yeah. I can be a blunt object, same, and require clear and open communication. If you're frustrated with me and there's something you think I can do about it, please tell me. I will do the same for you. You don't always have to worry about the day's ups and downs. I don't. If I haven't told you I'm frustrated, you can assume I'm not. And if you haven't told me you're frustrated, I will usually assume you're not. If I ask if we're cool and you tell me we are, I will definitely assume we are, and you can always ask the same of me. Honestly, like, that's you. I could have written this. I mean, except I wouldn't be clever enough to have written it. And I'm always so surprised when people are like, well, I didn't know you were frustrated because you didn't tell me when I asked. You were like, I'm okay. So as soon as you tell me I'm okay, I'm good. Then I'm just moving on and I'm not thinking about it anymore. So I think that this type of information about how people can understand how our brains work and how our communication styles are is incredibly helpful. And especially if you're leading a team, I think this is incredibly helpful. So kudos to you on that.
And Nancy, after I wrote that, we had everybody who's a leader on our team write one. And it's been so helpful. And I promise you, anybody who's listening to this, and Nancy, I hope you will do it. Feel free to comment.
Oh, I will. I guarantee you, I will do it.
No ideas are new. The reason I put it up publicly is because I showed it with my wife, who knows me obviously very well. And she read it, and she had a couple aha moments where she was like, oh, this is just how you are. I had always assumed that, you were frustrated, or you had a particular vibe on me. And I'm pretty consistent. And the cool thing about it is now I read it with my colleagues almost always, if you're working with people that are not evil. And I think there's only a tiny percentage of people who I would qualify as evil. They're not going to work here. You read it and you go, oh, well, I was taking whatever that was personally. And now I see that you're aware of it. And this is just part of your deal. It's helped us a lot. It helps me in my personal life too. And I highly recommend that exercise for anybody who wants to do it.
So Amazon delivery or garbage man? Obviously asked by one who has dogs. So I just getting a chuckle out of that. Okay. because we are running short on time, I am going to skip to the fun part of the show, which I'm probably the only one that thinks it's fun. But anyway, we're going to do it anyway. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. 5 burning questions. Number 1 question, what's your favorite food and can you cook it?
Szechuanese Chinese food, burn my face off, and yes, I can cook it.
Okay, I'm coming over.
Yes.
What character trait do you admire most in other people and why?
Scrappiness, because it combines resiliency and humor, and those are the 2 traits that I admired most in my mother.
I like that. Okay, now if I could ask you, what character trait in yourself are you most proud of and why?
Scrappiness for the exact same reason.
Because you are your mother's son.
I very much aspire to be my mother's son.
I love that. Okay. So I always like to throw in one very specific. So can any employer anywhere offer a decent health plan?
You have to be in the United States, and you have to be in conjunction with state laws, which in certain states like New York change the minimum number of people we can serve. But absent those state laws, we can currently go down to 5 employees. I can't wait till we can go lower than that, Nancy. We will eventually be able to go lower than that, but that's the agreement we have with Stop Loss today.
I love it. I love it. Okay. This is my favorite one. And you can't answer dancing because I already know that about you.
Okay.
What is your secret talent or something about you that people would be surprised to learn?
I've ministered 5 weddings as a non-denominational minister of the Universal Life Church. And the story behind that is funny. I had a mentor early on who was my high school wrestling coach, and he was a big talker. And I remember he didn't really like chemistry, which was the other thing he taught at school. So he would just find any excuse not to be teaching us chemistry. He started talking about how he had not gone to war because he had found that he could buy this, card online that allowed him to say that he was a minister, and then he could do conscientious objection and not go to war. And thankfully I had neither that situation or that opportunity. But I immediately heard him talking about that, and I thought, oh, that'd be really cool because, my mom was Catholic. My dad is Jewish. Religion was really messy and mixed up in my family. So I don't know what I think about that. But I know that I care about bringing people together. And I just thought, how cool would it be to be able to say I was a pastor? So I, send a letter in with a self-addressed stamped envelope in high school, and I get this card back. And then later in my life, I wouldn't have anticipated this. Some friends started to say, hey, we want somebody who's comfortable in front of a crowd and isn't going to talk too much about God. Would you like to minister our wedding? And it's probably my favorite thing I've, ever done outside of a work or a family context. I feel such a gratitude to be able to be there for people in that way. And so that's my favorite.
I love that. Fun fact, my husband ministered, or why can't I think of the term? Officiated the wedding of our son and his wife. So that was a really cool moment and really special to have somebody that you know and love be a part of it. So I think that is a really cool fun fact. And I will tell you, nobody else has answered that before. So
good. Well, I hope I can officiate my sons at some point if they ever decide.
I know.
We'll see.
Okay, last question. Who's the one person, famous or otherwise, living or not, that you would most love to sit down and have a conversation with, and why?
I feel like I'm a little bit of a broken record. It's my mom.
I knew it was going to be.
You knew it was going to be. And it's the coolest thing about it. She and I were close. There was nothing left unsaid. I would just value seeing her again, even for a bit, more than any other human being that's been alive since or before. So that's my answer.
I love it. Well, thank you, Nick, for joining me today. This was a fantastic conversation. I hope that anybody that's either listened to this live or will listen to it on the recording really takes the time to learn more about Decent, learn about what they are doing, learn more about direct primary care. Hang on, quick comment. Nick, it was great to learn about you and Decent. Spicy food is best when you sweat. We all can agree to that.
Yes, Brian.
Again, educate yourself, learn more about it. I believe that what is the past will be the future again. And this is just the newest expression of it. So if you want to get in touch with Nick at decent.com, you can go to their website as well. If you can't remember any of that, reach out to me and I will definitely connect you with Nick.
You can reach out to me, and whether you are interested in Decent or not, learn about direct primary care. We're part of a much, much bigger movement, and I'm sure that that's going places, and I think Decent will help. But that's the big piece here is there's an opportunity to put primary care in the center again, and that's what we're all going to do.
I love it. All right. Well, thank you everybody for tuning in today. I will be back next week, so I will see you next week. And thanks again, Nick, for joining us.
Thank you all. Thank you, Nancy. Bye-bye.